Right, I'm just going through some things in my head here. I'm trying to work out exactly. Trying to give you an insight as to how this case worked against me, and how ACC were able to commit crimes and then accuse me of the crimes and then try and get me convicted of crimes that they were actually committing. In other words, they're using the legal justice system to commit their crimes after committing crimes that they're not themselves being held criminally to account for the crimes they're actually committing. So they're just using the power that they have, the money and the resources that they have, to literally carry out a lynch mob. Now, it reminds me of, it was a car accident. This kid got hit on the wrong side of the road by a cop. The cop and two of his colleagues then claimed that the kid was at fault and he was on the wrong side of the road, and the kid ended up getting a conviction and all the rest of it. Then the kid got a private investigator. Well, his father did, cost him a fortune. And the cop who lied ended up going to prison for 3 years, and the other two cops lost their jobs. Now, it's not the same scenario, but it is the same scenario. It's where they commit crimes and then they accuse the victim of the crimes and try and get away with everything that they're doing. So my case is a bit more complex because it's under ACC, and everybody has been turned into victims by the terrorists themselves. So you're literally left in a situation where you're fighting, you're pushing shit up a mountain basically, and they're just tumbling it down on top of you as much as they can. But literally they're trying to buy time. Well, according to their own police, they're trying to buy time. According to their own detectives, it's an act of war against me. So literally you're living it every day. You're experiencing it every day. You're not actually getting anything from, you're not getting rehabilitated, you're not getting your injuries addressed, you're not getting anything. You're literally just being spoon-fed shit. Now, the other scenario with that is that if you go out and get a mortgage and you're tied up in legal and political garbage, the money that you have invested in your mortgage is going to be taken off you. Seriously. Because you have enough equity to fund your own legal battles. And this is how the government and its organised criminal mafia racketeering run system works. They attack you using your equity, they attack you using your kids, they work to get you blacklisted. They literally are using their organisation to commit crimes that are going to cost you everything you've got. They'll attack you using your kids, they'll try and provoke you, intimidate you, it's all part and parcel of entrapment. And then when they have nothing to attack you with, they simply just shut up shop and they create the biggest Mexican standoff you could ever come across. And then they try and turn it into civil matters, you suing them, or they turn it into public-private criminal prosecutions which you have to fund. So, you know, you've got all these scenarios, you've got all these situations actually, and all these facts. But nobody wants to address them and nobody deals with them. Not even the fucking lawyers. When they go to the United Nations, they don't mention any of this. They all sit there and they talk shite and argue about the legislation and the law because they want to keep it going. The longer they can keep it going, the more money they can make. The victims don't make fuck all, I can tell you that. They don't pay for doctor's costs, they don't pay for all of your treatment in any department. They don't pay for the full X-ray or the full MRI scan, or the, you know, you've always got an excess to pay. It's worse than a fucking insurance company. It's like, you know, if you're fully comprehensive, then, you know what I mean, you don't pay the excess if it's not your fault. You pay the fucking excess even when it's not your fault. That's the whole problem. So you're always getting screwed over, to be perfectly frank. And your life is always driven with fear and violence, because that's how these criminal, abusive, threatening, intimidating, violent thugs work. So I just wanted to run that little bit past you. So, I mean, you say it's probably not as relevant as a lot of other stuff, but it's relevant. And the New Zealand government are literally holding me criminally to blackmail and ransom, not for rehabilitation purposes, but for criminal containment of my life. So they can carry out their continued criminal racketeering, fraud, action on my life. And this is what they do to all their victims. And then you've got the other situation where they defrauded me of over $30,000 with an extra tax for suspending all my rights, entitlements, rehabilitation, medical and treatment needs for over 4 years. And then lying to foreign governments that I was getting everything that I was entitled to, when it was all a fucking lie. Anyway, just another little thing that I'm going to be sending off to the Prime Minister. Whether she looks at it or not is another matter. But it has to go online anyway. I'm sure some people will look at them at some point. I've got 300 videos I would love to post, but I want to keep that for a rainy day. It details every person that's ever been involved, and it details every situation that has ever arisen. It details it all. It'll bury most of them in criminalities if it all comes to light. But I'm sure it'll all come to light at some point, because I think I think that there's only one way this case can end, really. And I think I've resigned myself to the fact of my fate that was driven by these terrorists involved, created by corruption of medical professionals, corruption of police, corruption of the Crown Law Office, corruption of the Ombudsman's Office, corruption of privacy commissioners, corruption of human rights commissioners, corruption of health and disability commissioners, corruption of advocates, corruption of defence lawyers, corruption of judges, threatening, intimidating, violent thugs, the whole fucking lot of them. And it's a fucking mess. And like everything else, all messes are going to end in a fucking mess if somebody doesn't step up and address it properly. And so far we don't have anybody even trying to. So I'm going to take this to whatever level I need to take this to. They repealed the laws of criminal provocation as well because of this situation. Because the entire system is built on organised crime. It's built on entrapments and criminal provocations. And then when all that fails to give them the outcome that they want, they just go back to their criminal blackmail, criminal holding to ransom, organised crime run industry, and carry on with their racketeering. Nobody will sit in front of me and answer a question. You can't have any telephone conversations with them unless you tape record every fucking word. Because they're gangsters who just rely on hearsay, lies, innuendo, speculation and manufacturing. So does the medical experts as well. They cover up the crimes that the victim tells them about, because and half the time they don't even want to know it. They just goes in one ear and out the other. But it never goes into the reports, and that's what screws the victims over. And but why an injured person needs to have their lives criminally profiled and violated and raped, and why their family and their friends have to vouch for them because of a terrorist within ACC is just fucked up. And then why a Queen's Counsel then would obstruct and pervert the courses of justice so she could sit on a fence. It's a fucking joke shit. Anyway, everybody that I've had involved has fucked me over big time. So I think there's only one way this can end, and I'm quite willing to take it to that extent if I have to. Because I'm not willing to fucking live this shit for the rest of my life. And I'm not fucking willing to let these terrorists off the fucking hook without accountability of some kind. So that's the situation, Prime Minister, whether you fucking like it or not. And you can take that and tell that to the fucking United Nations too.